This is the note that this was done, I think, about 1937 when I was teaching at Fitztown, and they called it a walk into the forest. And at that time, it was the most abstract painting that I had done. So we'll gradually go into abstract work. One can see very quickly that I had seen Marc Chagall's painting, the great surrealist. For a very short while, I liked surrealism. Most young people go through a period of liking surrealism. And surrealism is putting things in an order, the sort of order that you might experience in a dream. And certainly I don't think anyone ever has naturalistic dreams, photographic dreams. And we do know that very, very strange things happen in dreams, the impossible. This I did my first year at the teaching at the University of Georgia. It's called Black Woman. I wanted to express the dignity that I felt black people had, my first feeling about them. I'd never been among black people, but very little before. There were none living in around Frankston in that part, Pontotoc County, where I live. There were a few black farmers between here and Bird's Mill. They owned their land, and my father knew them. And I know when we would come into Ada, he would always stop the buggy or the wagon, and they would be out in the field working, and he would walk over to the fence and shake hands with them and call them by name, their names, and have some conversation. And it was always a good relationship. And this I did about the same time, and I call it White Woman. But here I had seen the work of the great Dutch painter Piet Mondrian, and you know he used only vertical, horizontal lines, very geometric, primary colors, red, yellow, blue. And so when I get this in, I was naively thinking that I was being influenced by the paintings of Mondrian, but only on a very superficial level. Once you know and feel Mondrian, you know this is has very little to do with it. This is not abstract, but there's a difference in abstract and abstraction. Abstract is pure, it doesn't represent anything. And abstraction, it explains itself. It was something that was abstracted from something else and simplified. So this is not an abstract painting, it's an abstraction. The fruit in a black vase. And I think this shape, which I used in quite a lot of paintings, and here it is again, must have come from the quartered watermelon, which I always thought was a very beautiful shape and color and form. And of course, this is the fruit, abstracted the sort of the essence down to this sort of simplicity and expressed with the very simple colors, the blue, the yellow, red, green, and black. Again, no perspective and no shading to give volume. But there is a feeling of different distances in these fruits and in these forms here. The same sort of subject matter But this has more of a surrealistic element in it. Me, the horizon on the plains. And I knew, and I had also seen when driving toward Colorado, the mountains you'd see in the distance long before you got there. They would just barely appear, and then as you would drive, they seemed like almost for days, they would begin to rise and get higher and higher. Well, I placed them in this what is it, wine glass or whatever you might call it, a mug. So that in itself, taking the mountains and placing them in a glass container and organizing it in this way, again, is something like it might happen in a dream, but not in reality. Here it must be around 1922, and this is still an abstraction. Why is this an abstraction and not abstract? Well, these forms in this were abstracted from animal forms, cattle and horses. Body and head, obviously. And then rhythmically organizing these as the musician would take a few notes and organize them, various combinations to create a work of music. I played on these few forms and kept repeating them in variations to organize a composition in rhythm, form, color, and order. This now is into the purely abstract, represents absolutely nothing except itself. Well, how long could one look at this without tiring? Maybe one glances all you would have done. But it's a little bit like looking at the building the ceiling of the building that we were in this morning. I could sit and possibly and look at that at least one full day, and then maybe skip a few days and sit and enjoy that ceiling every time I sat down. Because those squares kept rearranging themselves to me. They were alive. And that's what an architect does. He tries to make his building come alive so that you might see parts of it differently each time you experience it. And it never grows old because it is a live, living work of art.